4 months after 2 miles of cedar fence disappeared from Marston Hills, the subdivision's property manager stood inside Levi Riehl's workshop with a broken piece of new composite fencing under her arm. Behind her, rain struck the windows in hard silver lines. "How much of our old cedar do you still have?" she asked. Levi looked toward the drying shed. "Enough to ask what happened." The manager placed the broken composite board on his bench. Its hollow center had split around a metal fastener. The subdivision needed 42 privacy screens repaired before a county inspection the following week. Only 4 months earlier, the same management company had paid workers to pull out every cedar board. Now it wanted the wood back. Why had Levi accepted thousands of gray, nail-filled boards that 2 salvage dealers refused to touch? Why did the first wall he built from them buckle after one hot afternoon? And what did he discover when he cut one weathered board open? If you enjoy stories about useful things receiving an honest second chance, subscribe to the channel. Stay to the end, because the board everyone called rotten was not the board that caused Levi's biggest problem. The story began in March, outside a growing subdivision near Lancaster County. Levi was 39 years old. He was tall, broad through the shoulders, and known for building plain barns, garden sheds, and porches that did not shake when a door closed. He lived with his wife Anna and their 4 children on a small farm 6 miles from Marston Hills. His shop stood behind the horse barn. A wood stove occupied one corner. Hand saws hung above a long bench polished by 20 years of work. Levi was young for a master builder, but he had handled cedar since childhood. His grandfather had built a spring house with cedar boards in 1968. The outside had turned silver before Levi was born. The inner faces were still red and fragrant decades later. "Cedar wears its age on the outside," his grandfather used to say. "That does not tell you what is inside." Levi also knew cedar could fool a careless builder. A board could look straight on the ground and twist after one side faced the sun. Old nail holes could form weak lines. The bottom 6 inches of a fence board might be rotten even when the upper 5 feet remained sound. He respected the wood, but he did not romanticize it. Marston Hills had installed its cedar fence 27 years earlier. The fence followed roads, walking paths, and backyards for just over 2 miles. Residents now wanted a cleaner, more uniform look. The property board approved a full replacement with dark composite panels. Travis Knox, the site superintendent, called Levi because disposal trucks were filling faster than expected. "You use rough lumber, right?" Travis asked. "Sometimes." "You can have the cedar. Free." "How much?" "All of it." Levi visited the site the next morning. Workers had already removed 300 feet. Boards lay in heaps beside concrete posts. Some were gray and straight. Others were green near the bottom, black around nail holes, or curled like shallow bowls. Lisa Bowman, a salvage dealer, had inspected the pile before him. She bought old beams and flooring, but she wanted no part of the fence. "Too many nails," she said. "Too much labor. You will spend $10 saving a $2 board." Travis laughed. "Levi has free labor at home," he said. Levi looked at him. "No labor is free." That ended the joke, but not the doubt. The removal crew asked if Levi wanted only the straight boards. He said no. The agreement was for every board. Selective picking would leave the hardest material and the disposal bill with someone else. For 9 days, wagons and flatbed trucks moved the cedar to Levi's farm. The final count was 4,812 boards, along with 190 cedar rails that were still long enough to inspect. The pile filled the open shed. Anna stood beside it and asked the right question. "Where will the next load go?" Levi had no answer. His first job was not building, it was sorting. Each board passed over a simple metal detector. Matthew and Joel, 2 young men who worked with Levi, pulled nails with long-handled pincers. Lower ends were cut back until the wood was firm. Boards with oily stains, unknown coatings, or deep decay were separated and never used inside a home. The process was slow. After 4 days, Travis stopped by and saw only 3 small stacks. "At this speed, winter will arrive before you build anything," he said. Levi handed him a freshly cut cedar end. The outside was gray. The inside was deep red, with narrow growth rings and the sharp, clean smell of a cedar chest. Travis smelled it, then handed it back. Still has holes. So do many useful things, Levi said. Levi's plan was to use the boards as ventilated exterior siding for garden sheds and small farm buildings. Cedar handles weather well when water can drain and air can move behind it. The gray surface would give a new building an old, settled appearance. He built a test wall 6 feet wide. The boards overlapped neatly. Black nails held each piece tight. By noon, the wall looked excellent. Then the afternoon sun reached it. At 4 o'clock, 3 boards had cupped away from the wall. One cracked beside an old nail hole. Another pushed its neighbor upward. The clean rows became a wavy line. Travis arrived while Levi was removing the failed pieces. "There is your free siding," he said. Levi did not defend it. The wall had failed. He took the boards into the shop and laid them on the bench. The problem was not hidden rot. The problem was the way he had fastened wood that had spent 27 years exposed on one side. The outer face had dried, heated, and cooled through thousands of days. The inner face had lived in shade. Once removed from the fence, both sides met the same air, and the boards began changing at different speeds. Levi had nailed them too tightly. He had treated the old cedar like flat new siding. The solution was simple to describe and slow to perform. Boards were stacked with thin spacers, so air reached both faces. They rested for 3 weeks beneath a roof. Levi sorted them by curve. He pre-drilled near old nail lines and used one centered fastener where the design allowed the board to move. Behind the siding, narrow vertical strips created a drainage gap. He explained it to Joel with a wet work glove. "If you pin every finger to the bench, the glove tears when it dries. Give the material room to change shape." The second test wall faced the same afternoon sun. It stayed flat. Levi sprayed it with water for 20 minutes. The water ran down the outer face. Air moved behind the boards. The sheathing remained dry. That was when the pile became a plan. But having a design did not mean anyone wanted to buy it. Levi's first customer was supposed to be Harold Mays, a retired teacher who needed a 12 by 16-foot garden shed. Harold liked the sample inside the workshop. 3 days later, he visited the drying shed and saw thousands of gray boards stacked beneath the roof. "Those are the actual boards?" he asked. "They are." Harold touched a dark mark around an old nail hole. The sample looked cleaner. Levi showed him where the sample had been brushed, trimmed, and tested. He explained that the finished shed would keep the silver surface, but would not include soft ends or unsafe sections. Harold still canceled the order. "My wife will think I bought a used shed," he said. The cancellation hurt more than Travis's jokes. Levi had already spent 86 hours sorting wood. He had paid for wagon repairs, metal detector batteries, fasteners, and covered storage. If customers saw only an old fence, the useful cedar would remain a pile. Anna suggested that he stop trying to explain the material with a small sample. "Build something people can walk around," she said. Levi needed a washroom beside the greenhouse, so he made that the demonstration building. He framed it with ordinary new lumber. The reclaimed cedar carried no structural load. It formed only the ventilated outer skin. He installed a clear panel inside one removable section so visitors could see the air gap, vertical strips, and weather barrier behind the boards. He also placed 3 short test boards beside the door. One was nailed tightly at both edges. One had no airspace behind it. The third used his corrected method. After a week of sun and rain, the first board split. The second stayed wet on the back. The third dried evenly. People did not have to trust a speech. They could see the difference. The demonstration building also exposed another mistake before it reached a customer. During the first hard rain, water entered around one window corner. The cedar siding was working, but Levi had placed the flashing behind the wrong layer. Water followed the top edge and reached the sheathing. He removed 12 boards, corrected the flashing, and tested the wall again with water from a hose. This time, the hidden surface stayed dry. Levi wrote both failures on a board inside the shop: movement and flashing. He wanted Matthew and Joel to remember that reclaimed material did not excuse new mistakes. A wall could fail because of an old board, a new fastener, or the builder standing in front of it. 2 weeks later, Harold Mays returned with his wife. They walked around the washroom, opened the clear inspection panel, and watched afternoon light move across the silver boards. His wife asked one question: "Can our shed look exactly this old?" That became Levi's first order. Straight boards became siding, narrow pieces became lattice, sound rails became porch screen frames, short sections became trim blocks and spacers, rotten ends were removed rather than hidden. By May, Levi had clad 6 garden sheds. He did not sand away the gray color. He brushed the boards, softened sharp edges, and left the history visible. Customers began asking why new buildings looked as if they had stood on the property for years. One woman ordered a potting shed because its cedar matched her old barn. A nursery bought 3 small sales shelters. A produce farm ordered a roadside stand. Lisa Bowman, the salvage dealer, returned and ran her hand across the ventilated wall. "I was wrong about the surface," she admitted, "but the labor still costs more than the boards." "That is why the price is for the work," Levi said, "not for finding something free." If you have ever discovered that the cheapest part of a project can demand the most patience, subscribe now. Levi had solved the wood problem, but the people who removed the fence were about to face a problem of their own. June brought 3 days of extreme heat, followed by a violent thunderstorm. At Marston Hills, several new composite privacy screens stood around trash collection areas and utility boxes. The panels had been installed tightly between metal posts. Under the heat, they expanded. When cold rain arrived, the fasteners held while the hollow boards moved. 11 panels cracked, 17 pulled loose. 2 complete screens leaned toward a service road. The materials were under warranty, but replacement parts would take 6 weeks. A property inspection was scheduled in 7 days. That was why property manager Diane Keller came to Levi's workshop carrying a broken board. "We need 42 screens repaired," she said. Levi asked about height, distance from the ground, and the metal posts already in place. He did not promise to copy the failed system. He proposed cedar panels built in sections. Each section would have space below for drainage and small gaps that allowed air movement. The old gray boards would match the stone walls and mature trees better than the dark composite. Diane looked toward the drying shed. "That is our old fence. Some of it. We paid to remove it." "You paid to change your fence," Levi said. The wood did not agree to become useless. The deadline was tight. Levi accepted only 20 screens for the first week. He would not rush 42 and repeat the same mistake made with his first test wall. Travis Knox helped measure the existing posts. He no longer laughed at the nail holes. He watched Levi place each fastener away from a weak line and leave a small movement gap at the frame. The first 20 screens were installed the evening before inspection. Rain fell again during the night. The boards darkened with water, then dried the next morning. None buckled, none cracked. The inspector approved the repaired areas and gave the subdivision time to complete the rest. Over the next month, all 42 screens were rebuilt. Marston Hills also ordered a cedar shelter for the community mailboxes and 2 small pavilions beside the walking trail. Residents began asking why the weathered cedar had ever been removed. Levi never said the composite product was always bad, or old cedar was always good. The new panels had failed because the installation left too little room for movement. His first cedar wall had failed for nearly the same reason. Material matters. Design matters more. By autumn, every one of the 4,812 boards had been inspected. Not every inch survived. Rot, stains, and damaged sections were cut away. But Levi had accepted every board, sorted every board, and found an honest use for every safe length. Travis visited the finished mailbox shelter and tapped one silver-gray panel. "You took 2 miles of fence," he said. "What do you call it now?" Levi looked at the sheds, screens, and stacked orders waiting in the shop. "Work for tomorrow." If you want more stories about practical people who refuse to judge value too quickly, subscribe to the channel. Because weather can turn cedar gray, but only a careless eye turns it into waste.